Hi everyone. In this lecture, we will study about the nature of traction load. Consider a train is moving over a level track. That means if this is my track, this is the side view of a track, and for example, these are my wagon or carriage of a train, right? That means, and this might be my engine. If my train is moving a level track, so if my train is running over a level track with a constant velocity, okay, if this is my condition, there are some force which may be developed by the train or by the atmosphere which actually oppose the moving of train from one place to another place. That is called frictional force, right? The frictional force, the force is actually oppose the train to move from one point to another point. And this friction can be of two types. One is called internal friction and the second one is called external friction. Okay, so these are two types of frictional force which actually the internal friction include the frictional force between the bearing and the guide, right? That means if this is my wheel and this is my axle, the axle is connected to wheel through some bearing arrangement. The frictional force developed by the bearing and the guides are called internal friction. Okay, that is happening internally to the in the train. What is the external friction? External friction exists the friction between wheel and the track. Okay, or wheel with flank. So these include the external friction, and you can see these two types of friction, that is internal friction and external friction, it actually depend upon the weight of train. Okay, weight of train. As the weight of train increases, the friction between bearing and guide increases. Also, the friction between wheel and track also increases. So, the internal friction and external friction actually depend upon the weight of train. Okay, but it never depend upon the shape and size. Not depend on shape and size of train, right? Okay, but what happened? So let's consider this is my first type, this is my second type. Another type of force also oppose the moving of train, that is called air friction. But this is a variable one. Depending upon the wind speed and wind direction, this air friction changes with respect to the speed of train. Let's consider this is a car. Okay. And you can see this is my front side, this is my rear side. And you can see this front glass. It is bent. So if you take it is called 30 degree or 45 degree. When the car is moving with high speed, the air from the front side is hitting to the front and actually moving towards the other side. So that is why the car can move faster. But when you think about a truck, and you can see the front glass are vertically mount. If my wind speed is 5 km per hour and my vehicle speed 60 km per hour and here also 60 km per hour, in this case speed remains same, air speed also remains same, but due to this arrangement, here it is 90 degree, here it is 30 degree, due to this arrangement the air resistance or air friction of car is less and air resistance of truck is high. So actually you can see Here air resistance or air friction depend upon the size and shape of the vehicle. So I can write air friction is independent of weight but depend upon shape and size. This air friction also depend upon the speed of air or velocity of air and direction of air. That means when you think about the nature of traction load, and the traction load nature can be changed with respect to the frictional force, and those frictional force can be classified into three types. First is internal friction, the friction between bearing and guides. The second is external friction, that's the friction between wheel and track. And the third important one is air friction, and which among these three, the first and second one depend upon the weight of the train, but it is independent of the shape and size of the train. But the third one, that is air friction, it actually independent of the weight, but it depend upon shape, size, air velocity and wind direction also. So when I consider the first one, second one, third one together, so I can say 1 plus 2 plus 3. That means internal friction plus external friction plus air friction. These three include called train resistance. In short, you can write FR. What is train resistance? The train resistance are the resistance offered by internal friction, external friction and air friction of the train. And if we try to draw the traction load curve, which is the curve between traction resistance or train resistance with the velocity of train, we can find a beautiful curve like the speed and torque characteristic of a machine. Okay, let us study about the traction load curve. The traction load curve is the curve between or the plot between train resistance, that is Fr, which is in x-axis, versus the velocity of train. And if you try to draw it, we can see this is my y-axis, which is nothing but the velocity of the train, and this is my x-axis, which is nothing but the train resistance, that is called Fr. Okay, you can see as we saw that the train resistance is the combination of internal friction, external friction and air resistance or air friction. So these two is the fixed one and this is varying. Air resistance is 0. Let's consider air resistance is 0. That means air is not moving, steady air. In that time, these two friction exist. That means among this Fr, I can say Fr is equal to 1 plus 2 plus 3, that is internal plus external plus the air resistance. So if my wind is not moving, in that case the third one, the air resistance is 0, but these two internal and external is present. That is why we must have some resistance, that is called fixed train resistance. Let's consider this is up to this much. So at any kind of velocity or speed, we must have this internal friction and external friction. Let the train is steady state and not moving, and when I try to start moving the train, that time my train resistance is very high and speed is 0. So let's consider a point here where speed is 0 with high train resistance. When I increase the speed of train or when I increase the velocity of the train, my train resistance actually gradually reduces, because as resistance reduces, speed increases. Vice versa is also true. That means when speed increases, my resistance decreases. So you can see when I move backward the curve, we can see the train resistance is reducing, whereas the velocity is increasing with some small amount. Okay, in this case, and here we will not go beyond because we must have the constant train resistance. Then after what happened, when I further increase my speed, okay, I need to speed up or accelerate the train. So when I further increase the train, due to high torque applied to the wheel, my speed increases, whereas my train resistance also increases, but not very high, because at the time of starting inertia is very high. By reaching up to this, my train the train is getting some speed, so inertia is very less. As inertia is not present, so by increasing the velocity also I can have increase some train resistance, because consider this is a body moving in right side and here it is air force which is 5 km per hour. Okay, you can see if my body is moving with 50 km per hour and air is 5 km per hour, here you can find some train resistance. Let's say it is FR1. But with same air speed, same direction, everything remains same. But if I increase my speed of the, if I increase the speed of my vehicle to 70 km, what happens? The vehicle distance or train distance increases, that is FR2, where FR2 is greater than FR1. Here I consider a constant air resistance, but when my speed increases, my air resistance also increases. Clear? This is the curve called traction load curve, which is a plot between the train resistance and the velocity of the train. This is similar to speed versus torque. The Fr, which is nothing but the train resistance, is also depend upon the windage friction. Windage friction, the friction due to the wind, that is called windage friction. Second one is the viscous friction, which is the viscosity of the grease applied to the bearings. And third one is the Coulomb's friction. Okay, and the fourth one is called stiction. Okay, and this stiction is actually depend upon the speed. That means stiction is directly proportional to speed square. Okay, that means at high speed the stiction is very high. What is stiction? It is a homework for you. You have to find out what is stiction. At the time of starting, inertia is 0. Inertia is 0 or less. Okay, but if I want to accelerate the train, that means from starting we want to accelerate it. Due to acceleration, what is acceleration? Speed by time square or velocity by time. Acceleration is equal to velocity by time, and I told the velocity, if my velocity increases, that is speed increases, or v, or you can say v is equal to speed by time, right? And I told that the term which increases with respect to the square of speed, that is called stiction. Stiction is directly proportional to speed square. While starting and just after starting, due to acceleration, the stiction takes a vital role. So if you try to move a train from one point to another, so the acceleration torque takes the major portion of the load torque. Right? So the acceleration torque takes the major portion of the load torque due to this stiction only. Considering this is an important point, this gives us idea to choose the motor which is employed to drive the wheels of the train. Irrespective of the speed, if my speed is 0 or the speed is base speed, that motor which can able to provide maximum torque, we have to choose those motor or those drives. So this is very important point for choosing electrical motors to drive the traction instrument or train. So another important term that is called coefficient of adhesion. So before explaining the coefficient of adhesion, let me make you acquainted with one terms that is called driving wheel. Okay, driving wheel. Right? What is driving wheel? You might see a train consists of number of wheels. Yes or no? And but all the wheels are not connected to the engine. Yes, so some of the wheels are in the engine or in the locomotive, and remaining wheels are in the wagon or the coaches. Among all the wheels which is present below the engine, all wheels are not connected to the driving motor. Some of the wheels which is present below the engine are actually connected to the driving motors either directly or by some reducing gear. So what is driving wheel? The wheel connected to the driving motor directly or by reducing gear. So if the motors or electrical motors, if it is directly connected to the wheels or by some reducing gear it connected to the wheels, so those wheels are called driving wheels. So to move a train from one place to another place, this driving wheel having vital tasks. So we can say this is driving task. Okay. So this driving task include, consider this is my engine, right? And these are some dummy motors, and this is my these these two pair are my driving wheel. What it actually do? Driving motor actually push this engine. Yes or no? So driving task include pushing the locomotive. This is the first task. What is second task? As these locomotive are connected to the wagons or the coaches, then this total body is pulling these coaches. That is why driving tasks include pushing the locomotive plus pulling the coaches or the wagons. So this is my driving task. So what actually happened? Consider this is my track, a 2D view. I am drawing a 2D view, and this is the wheel, right? If this is my track and this is my wheel, so what the task? Task means pushing the locomotive and pulling the wagon both. That means if my motor is rotating in one direction, in that direction it actually apply the force over the track. That means my axle is connected to the motor, yes or no? And let's consider this is my direction of my wheel, or this is the direction of my driving motor. That means in this direction it is actually applying a force over the track, yes or no? This is called force by the wheel. Yes or no? Because as my motor is rotating clockwise, that clockwise force is applied over the wheel tangentially. Yes or no? Why tangentially? Tangentially means if you connect a stone through a string and try to make it rotate, when it catches some speed, if you remove your hand at that time, the stone is not actually moving in a circular path, but it actually try to move away using a and form a tangential. And when you leave the string, the stone is actually moving with a tangent. That is why the rotating force actually give a thrust that is in tangentially over the track, right? And this tangential force is actually provide a opposite reaction, that is in opposite direction with the force by the wheel. So this is equal and opposite direction. As my rail, this is my rail or track, this is fixed. As my track is fixed, instead of my track moving, wheel actually go forward. Yes or no? So this is all about the how a motor actually try to move. If I apply a force F1, which actually try to rotate the motor, which in turns rotate the driving wheel, and the driving wheel starts to move. But what happened? That is the important thing. This F1 is actually depend upon the load of the train. How much the load of a train, or what is the weight of the train. With respect to the weight of train, this force is applied. Okay. If instead of applying the force F1, if I apply force F2, which is very greater than F1, okay, I need to apply F1, but I applied F2, which is greater than F1. As my force is high, the wheel is rotate, okay, wheel rotate, but it will rotate in the same place, it won't move, or if it move, it won't move a high distance, it will go up to a very small distance. So in the same point, wheel moves. Okay, imagine this is my truck and this is a this is the driving wheel which is loaded by the train, and it is rotating with high speed without moving here and there. What happened? In that case, due to friction, both the track and the wheel both are damaged. Okay, track and wheel get damaged, right? So to avoid this, okay, a torque management system, okay, or torque controlling system, TCS, to avoid the slipping of wheel, this is called wheel slipping. So to avoid wheel slipping, what we have to do? We have to mount a device which actually calculates the force with respect to the weight and load of the train. That is called TCS, torque controlling system. Okay, this takes very important role. So the torque controlling system is very important to avoid the slipping of the wheels. So the device called torque controlling system is actually control the torque applied to the wheel. But how it calculates the torque? The torque controlling system is actually calculate the torque from the coefficient of adhesion. That is called mu A or Ca, which is equal to maximum tractive effort applied without the slipping of wheels divided by weight of driving axle. This weight of driving axle is also called as adhesive weight. So the tractive effort is directly proportional to the motor torque. Right? The tractive effort is directly proportional to the motor torque. Friction coefficient is over a constant point in over a single point, that is called coefficient of adhesion. If the frictional force is applied on the number of points, that is called coefficient of friction. That means coefficient of friction is multi-point consideration and coefficient of adhesion is single point consideration. Thank you so much.